From fans accusing him of using performance-enhancing drugs to jumping from one controversy after the other, here's why Conor McGregor missed his USADA tests. It's no surprise that Michael Chandler's patience with the Notorious is growing thin these days. After failing to meet the deadline for the anti-doping agency's drug tests, McGregor's comeback into the octagon doesn't look promising. Rumor has it, the fighter's all juiced up on steroids right now, and that's why he's dodging USADA as much as he can. Ever since he went on a hiatus, following his leg injury in his bout with Dustin Poirier, Conor's recovery has been impressive. Some might say that it's a little crazy how much he's bulked up during his time off. UFC fans were quick to point out the sudden change in his physique and said that the only explanation is that the Notorious is using performance-enhancing drugs, because there's no way he's gotten in shape the old-fashioned way. Conor's alleged use of illegal substances might just be a theory among fans right now, but it's the only one that makes sense. Why else would he be missing his USADA deadlines? Because to be declared fit to fight in the octagon, a fighter needs to be in the anti-doping agency's testing pool for at least 6 months before being allowed to compete. For Conor, this puts him in a tough spot. If only he'd agreed to USADA's terms and gotten himself tested like every other athlete in the promotion, he would have been well on his way, going up against Chandler. But since he's avoided getting tested like the plague, the whole thing's now come up to bite him in his butt. Fighters need to be clean, which includes getting tested regularly. And if they fumble a single test, it's game over, which is what fans think is about to happen to the Irishman. But Chael Sonnen doesn't seem to agree. He went on the record saying that people are being unfair when they accuse Conor of using steroids. But according to him, they might just be performance-enhancing drugs and not steroids. Because you see, any agent that helps improve athletic performance can be a PED. And if an athlete is using a steroid in its anabolic form, then that means trouble. Because remember, all steroids can be PEDs, but not all performance-enhancing drugs are steroids. So, as far as McGregor is concerned, for him to get heavy like that, he has to be using a special type of PED. And from the looks of it, it doesn't seem likely. Sonnen thinks that the media's caused massive misunderstandings and that PEDs aren't exactly banned in sports. They're only discouraged, sure, but only to give all athletes a leveled playing field. As far as McGregor's transformation is concerned, Chael thinks that since the Irishman took an extended break from MMA, maybe he put on some weight, and his body held onto a lot more water than it did previously. But if you ask me, there's no way he's putting on water weight with rock-hard abs, because that's just crazy. What's even fishier is that Conor hasn't provided the USADA with a single drug test sample since the third quarter of 2021. While it's true that he was in recovery and all, but let me ask you this, if he was well enough to serve as a coach for The Ultimate Fighter in 2023, he could have also dropped by the USADA office and submitted a sample or two for the test. No. Is it because he didn't have any time? Or is it because he's been at the front and center of controversy, even after being away from the octagon? I mean, they don't call him the Notorious for no reason. So are you really surprised? Even when he was on his so-called injury hiatus, McGregor continued to make things worse for himself, as if his track record was already squeaky clean. In July 2022, word got out that a woman in her 40s had accused McGregor of physically assaulting her on his yacht in Ibiza during his birthday celebration last year. The alleged victim claims that Conor was not only verbally abusive, he also punched and kicked her. And if that wasn't horrible enough, the fighter also threatened to drown her. Yikes! According to the woman, she suffered an injury to her wrist after she fell from one of his blows and was forced to run away as far as she could to protect herself. While McGregor's denied these claims, his reputation has suffered a lot, with the fans wondering if his hiatus would turn into a permanent vacation. Like at this point, the MMA community already thinks that McGregor's in love with the white stuff. So the fact that he now has assault accusations to his name is just a lot to deal with, which might be why getting tested for drugs was the last thing on his mind. The drama doesn't stop there, though. Conor's battle against doping was still at large at the start of 2023. Back then, the UFC had already announced that the Notorious would be making his comeback at UFC 296 against Michael Chandler, and the fans were super excited to see him return to the octagon once again. But then, the Irishman dodged a bullet named USADA, and come June 16, 2023, he was no longer eligible to enroll in the agency's testing pool. Before all of this played out, though, there was a major push and pull between the agency and Conor. The Irishman claimed that instead of entering a 180-day trial period to declare himself clean, he needed only 2 negative drug tests to be cleared to fight again, and that the matter had already been sorted. This was news to everyone in the MMA community, including the USADA. The agency countered his claim, saying that the athlete was wrong and that he needed to follow the same set of rules, just like everyone else in the testing pool. Now, the reason why this rule even exists in the first place is because this prevents athletes from using their retirement status to gain an unfair advantage. And while Conor didn't retire from the UFC, his situation was more or less similar to Brock Lesnar, who tried to bend the rules to his advantage. In 2016, Lesnar received a special exemption from the USADA to bypass the required 6-month return window so he could continue to compete in the ring. But despite getting special treatment, Brock failed his drug test later, although the result took some time and didn't exactly come back before his fight. Now, if Conor was also excused the same way as Lesnar, this would have set a dangerous precedent in the MMA community. For starters, people would have accused USADA and the UFC of playing favorites, and you already know Hunt's still pissed about what Brock did all those years ago. Letting Conor go in this case would question the integrity of the anti-doping system as a whole, and it would be unfair to those athletes who go through vigorous training and stay clean just so they can compete in the UFC. Conor was already exempted from the pool when he took time off to recover from the injury he suffered during UFC 264, and even that was one heck of controversy. The Notorious broke his tibia in the ugliest way possible during the first round of the bout, and after that, he knew he had to pack his bags and leave. Many fans thought that Conor would take this time off to reflect on everything he's done in the past and consider his comeback as a second chance at a clean slate. They were rooting for the Notorious to take ample time off to heal and then enter the testing pool so he could continue showing everyone in the octagon who's boss. But unfortunately, as the enrollment deadline got closer and McGregor became bulkier than ever, people started to wonder why he's avoiding getting tested. Some fans argued that maybe Conor's had enough and his time off put things into perspective for him, but others, yeah, they weren't kind one bit. When news of Conor missing the deadline broke out, one fan took things a little too far, saying that the Notorious probably doesn't want the smoke because he's too busy assaulting girls in bathrooms. Yikes! I mean, I know he doesn't have the best track record, but that's a bit harsh, don't you think? Other fans seem to agree, though, because they think that the reason why Conor's hiding from the USADA is because he's on the roids. Hence, why McGregor would be avoiding getting tested, because he doesn't want the doping agency to figure out his secret. While plenty of people poked fun at him, some diehard fans admitted that they had lost respect for the Irishman, and that Mike Chandler deserves a lot better than an opponent who doesn't take the rules seriously. One person on Twitter even claimed that they don't see Conor making lightweight ever again, considering he's like 50 pounds heavier now, but you never know, maybe Dana might just play favorites again. And so, from jumping to one controversy after the other, to being accused of using performance-enhancing drugs to sauce himself up, this was why Conor McGregor missed his USADA tests.